Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Her Laundry Unfolded. I'm Wendy Babcock, your host. And this morning I'm joined by Stacie Cunningham. Welcome, Stacie.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So just a quick backstory. So Stacie applied to the podcast, and then she sent me a chapter of a book that she's included on. And I just got to it last night and read it, and I was literally in tears the whole time I was reading this. So you have a very powerful story. And I think people really need to hear, this is a story that people need to hear and be aware that this happens. So with that, I'm just going to let you jump into your story and share as much or as little as you're comfortable with, because it's a tearjerker. It's
Right. Well, how much time do we have? Because I could talk for 2 hours.
I usually do about 45 minutes, but hey, if we go over, okay. It's fine with me. Yep.
No, that's good. I was just teasing. Yeah, because I've got a reputation of talking a lot, so I just wanted to put that out there.
We're on the same page.
Which is why you have this wonderful podcast.
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting. So we lived in California most of our life. We moved to Colorado in 2009. So I have two daughters, Cassie and Courtney, and my youngest, they were both in this Taekwondo studio, and we moved when they were still in it in 2009. Well, in 2006, 2006, 2007, my youngest daughter had let us know that she was abused by her Taekwondo instructor. She was 6 and 7 years old. She repressed those memories. We had no idea that this was even going on. She had told me later a lot in sequential order. It was kind of like the laundry unfolding, right? So unfolding the timestamp, it's a lot of it wasn't clear until after everything had happened, because she wasn't talking about it. She didn't tell a therapist. She wouldn't tell us. I didn't know exactly what had happened. She was in the hospital a year prior for a stress-related condition called conversion disorder, which really shut down her body. And we didn't know what was wrong at the time. She was only 13 years old. And the therapists and the psychologists and the doctors were asking me, has any big trauma happened in your daughter's life? And we're, no, nothing, not even a car accident, nothing. And even she herself at the time was just like, no, I lived a pretty, normal life. And so they just put it up to being an overachiever. She wanted to be the best friend, the best student, the best daughter, all of it. And she put a lot of pressure on herself. So I thought, wow, how could how much stress can a 13-year-old have to where it's going to put her in the hospital?
Right.
And so she started doing therapy. She started doing, coping skills and all of that. So, I think that whole year of therapy must have started to bring it out. Also, I was told after the fact that when you reach puberty, that a lot of these, that could trigger memories and flashbacks. So the fact that she was having these, and when the moment it dawned on her that they were real, that these were actual memories and not just nightmares, she just went to a total breakdown.
How terrifying for her. I can't even imagine that realization that poor little girl went through. Like, this is real. Like, this is a memory, not a bad, nightmare.
Exactly. And I didn't understand, all of it. I mean, you talk about a fear response, right? Flight, fright, or freeze. I mean, I fought. I was like, there is no way, I'm gonna lose my daughter over this. And I ended up found a phone number of the detective that had, there was an article that a friend of mine in 2011, this was after we moved, before we knew anything, that like, hey, did you know about this? And there was an article of him being accused of sexual abuse with a child. And I thought, oh my gosh. And I went to both of my girls and asked them, and they both said no, nothing, had happened. And we were pretty open. So I thought,
Yeah.
And so I knew that there was that article. So when this came out, I went back to 2011, found the phone number. The guy was still working there, and he remembered the case.
Wow.
vividly. So we started talking, and she's like, he goes, okay, so is your daughter ready to tell her story? We need to do a forensic interview with her.
Oh,
And I'm like,
yikes.
no, this just broke. She's broken. I'm like, I don't think she could speak at all. And
Wow.
so really quickly after that, she became suicidal. And
Oh.
to know my daughter, she was so full of life.
Mm-hmm.
She was this fearless little girl, so bubbly, so outgoing. I could not imagine how much pain she could be in to want to not be here anymore.
Right.
And what do you do with that as a mom?
Yeah.
Right?
Like I said, it's like it's
And
your worst nightmare. Everything bubbling to the surface. That's a lot to have on your shoulders, and it's your child. I got goosebumps just thinking about it.
yeah, exactly. And I, did everything I possibly could. I looked up every trauma therapy, all these therapists in the area. She ended up having two therapists, one for trauma and one that she had since she got out of the hospital, just to see if they can kind of, combat this and see how they can help her. But we ended up putting her in the hospital. She wasn't safe at home. She was self-harming. I found out that she did attempt a couple of times without my knowledge.
Wow.
And so she was there, and for several weeks she went through residential treatment and everything. Now that's a whole nother story of what it was like as parents to see your child in a psychiatric hospital.
I can't even imagine.
Oh, the environment, not that it was a bad for the hospital itself. They could do what they could do, but it was a toxic environment. My daughter is very passive, very calm.
Mm-hmm.
She was surrounded by angry teenagers.
Wow.
Like wherever she looked, and loud noises were a trigger. She had to wear these big headphones, like when you get at a gun range, to mute the sound around her, because it was a trigger. And so it was like, what's the worst, lesser of the evil? Taking her home, getting her out of there, or keeping her in this place.
Right. What a hard decision.
Home, she wasn't ready. I that would be that decision. And if something would have happened, would have been, would have killed me.
Yeah. So you have to advocate for what's best, even though there's almost no right answer in a way, because either way, there's a big issue. She's in this place, like you said, where there's triggers and it's toxic, but then at home, what is she going to do?
Yeah, it was really kind of crazy. And, throughout this whole thing, Courtney has been in church, we, in her youth group, we're a family to attend. So she had faith. And I know that a lot of that helped her, survive, through all this. And, throughout this story, there were so many God moments that I couldn't have any other explanation to the timing of everything. And so we finally got her out of residential treatment. It was about 8 weeks. Okay. She couldn't do school. She couldn't do academics. It was too hard for her. Okay. And then, so when she went to,
sorry.
It's okay.
Of course. The one day I want to shut the door. Boys. Oh, whoops. I'm going to try and mute.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So anyway, so when we got out of there, she went through, loves music. So she was taking voice lessons and trumpet lessons. She was in choir and band, and we put her back into those classes, but took her out of academic. So we couldn't,
my door.
She couldn't do that type of mental work for school. This is high school, right? So for her to go back to the high school, she was gone for so many weeks, and all the questions, all her friends were like, and the whole school, she just felt like a target. She felt all these eyes were on her. There was all these rumors, how high school kids could be really mean. And so that was really hard. And you are muted, by the way. I can't hear you.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Yeah. I had my husband shut my door.
I know we had a dog situation, so
yeah, shut the door. But no, I can imagine she's going to be invisible at that point.
Right. Yeah, she just wanted to get back to normal. And, no matter how hard she tried, normal just, this was the new normal,
Right.
And so several months went by. She was doing okay. But then I started seeing her go down, this was in the spring. So she got back, she was out of the hospital in November. It was like, April. And she was self-harming again. She was isolating. I thought, oh God, here we go. She's going back to the hospital. I don't want to put her back in this place.
Right.
And one of these God moments happened. I got a phone call from the district attorney. They had found him because when we first told, what had happened and she was supposed to do this interview, he had fled the country.
Oh my gosh.
There were other victims. So he was
Wow.
gone.
Wow.
So this whole time, we didn't know where he was.
Right.
And when I got the phone call that they found him in Las Vegas collecting a paycheck, he was one leg. Diabetes had caught up to him and took his leg, but so did karma.
Karma, absolutely. That's another God moment right there.
Oh, yeah. And, the marshals grabbed him, took him to the LA County. There was a $2.2 million bail. There's no way he was getting out.
Good.
Yes, exactly. So, but the two therapists weren't sure if I should tell her. They didn't know.
Okay.
Because she was in such a fragile state, they didn't know what this would do.
Right.
And as a mom, I knew I had to tell her. I just, this could be closure. So I sat her down. It was literally after a session. And as I was walking out of the session, and my daughter couldn't see, the therapist looked at me and she did like this, like, keep her close.
Oh, wow.
She's ready. Like, wow. I don't know. I'm like, oh crap, so I got her home. I sat her down and I told her, and the look on her face was priceless. She was laughing and crying at the same time. And she just looked at me and she said, Mom, does this mean I'm finally free?
Oh my God.
Does this mean I'm safe? Am I safe? Is he going to come get me? So she thought this whole time that he was right outside, ready to he had told her that he would kill her family if she ever told.
Oh my God.
And she thought, he was a monster. He was a 5th degree Taekwondo black belt. So she figured he could do it,
Oh my God. Just imagine fear that poor little girl went through. I can't even fathom. Wow.
And so when this happened, my family came down, my husband and my daughter, and she was almost like screaming, like, did you hear they caught, and she was so happy. We actually did literally the time warp in our kitchen.
Wow.
We turned up the radio, we're dancing and singing. It was like the greatest moment. Wow. And after that had happened, I realized that, and they said, she's got to testify. She's got to do that forensic interview. She's got to go to court, and we had a court date of July 10th.
Okay.
And at this time, we were looking for a place for her to go because her therapist thought, get her out of the environment. So we were looking at homes, like girls' homes, for her to have the individual therapy, group therapy, school, all of that. And we found one that she was going to go to in June. She had to do the forensic interview in May. Okay. She did the interview. It was at this wonderful place called Sungate Kids, who advocated for kids and helped with the court cases and stuff like that. And she went in with the interview, and they had to videotape it. And within 20 minutes, she came running out in tears. Wow. And she hugged me and she said, she said she couldn't do this. She couldn't keep going. And I looked at the therapist. I'm like, did you get it? And she said, no, I need 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, wow. So we had therapists there. We had all these things there to calm her down. And what made her, the backbone kind of came out, is we told her that if she did this, he would never hurt another little girl again. Yeah. And she would be the hero. Right. And so she found her strength and she went back and she did it. Then we had a meeting with the sheriff. There's 2 sheriffs there to tell us what was going to happen next. We could not see the video. because it was, locked in, and because there was no case, the case had to go through.
Right.
And the sheriff looked at me and she had a tear in her eye. And she said, "What your daughter went through, I have never seen or heard."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh my God, what did she go through?" Like, at this point, I still didn't know.
Right.
The only thing she had said when it first came out, we were in the dining room and she was crying over having to go to California to visit her Nana.
Mhm.
And we didn't understand why she didn't want to go. And it was California, and that was a trigger. And
Oh,
she blurted out, Grandmaster touched me.
wow.
And that's all we knew.
Wow.
A couple months later, when she was in the hospital in Highlands Ranch,
Mhm.
we were in a family meeting, and she retreated again. She got down into this little ball, and she was rocking back and forth, and she had her hand in the air, and she kept saying, "Jesus, take me now, please.
Oh my
I
God.
can't." So I was like, "Oh my God." So to witness that, I was like, "Oh, this is crazy." So,
Right.
that scene in Good Will Hunting where it's not your
Yeah.
fault. It's not your fault. And that broke, and he came out and broke. So as she was in this ball, she was whispering, and I couldn't hear what she was saying. And I just kept telling her, "It's not your fault.
Right.
It's not your fault. You're safe. You're safe." And she just looked at me and screamed, "I was raped."
Oh God.
And I went, "Oh my God, what do you mean?" I was like, what? And so I couldn't
Wow.
handle that. And we were just talking to her, saying it was okay. You're safe now. You're going to be okay. And later that evening, or the next day, she went to a trauma therapist. She was pissed off. I saw her for my hour visit, and she was so mad, but she was talking. And I thought,
Good.
"Ooh, this is my opportunity
She found that anger, which is good.
to see if I could talk to her." And
Right.
I did, as I asked her, and I said, "Okay, so what you said yesterday, was it the same person? What happened?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "How many times?" Because I wanted to know. And she held up 2 fingers and didn't say anything. And I'm like, "Oh my God, so it happened twice?" And she said, "No, Mom, for 2 years."
Oh my God.
And I went, okay, back to a phone call, la 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 la,
Yeah.
not hearing that. We're back to we were playing cards, and I was just like, then we're going
Oh,
back to this card game, and I left, and I was screaming inside. I don't even know how I got home. I don't remember driving home.
yeah. Shock.
And so, yeah, 6 and 7 years old. How, I just couldn't, my mind
How
couldn't
devastating.
wrap around that.
Yeah.
So she did, fast forward, we did that video. She went to Florida. I was just devastated for her to be gone. She was out of the house. I was very lonely. I had just started a new job at an insurance agency. I needed something to do. I got invited to a One Hope wine meeting, and at this meeting, there were a couple ladies there that talked about Polka Dot Powerhouse.
Oh, yeah.
And that you should come to this group. I'm like, what a kind of silly name for a group, but okay.
Right?
So there was right. So it was a open house. So I went, and oh my gosh, it was like, these were my people. This was my tribe. I felt so
Yes.
welcome. These women were awesome. I signed up on the spot. I signed up for their annual convention. I was like, okay, this is awesome.
Yes.
And at that time, there was a mortgage broker, because I was an insurance agent. So she wanted to give me some referrals. We could talk about doing business together. And she wanted to meet on July 6th. And I thought, well, God, our trial date was July 10th. And we were still working with a therapist in Florida for her to just get ready, for her to stand, if she hasn't told her story to me or any therapist, how is she going to sit and tell details in a court? And I was like, oh my God. So she insisted that we met. Of course, I couldn't really talk about business very much. It was all, going on. And she just looked at me matter of factly and said, well, did you call BACA? I'm like, BACA? What's that? And she said, it's Bikers Against Child Abuse. they will go to court with your daughter. I'm like, what do you mean they've good? I don't understand. And she's like, I don't know. I just saw this video. So you can, go ahead and call and see what happens. I'm like, okay. So I looked them up online. I made a phone call. I talked to a child liaison, and, I don't know what they could do in 4 days. This was a Thursday. The trial was on Monday, 3 states away.
Wow.
I was like, oh, okay. So we got everybody together. We started walking towards the LA County courthouse, and there on the courthouse steps were 17 bikers.
Oh my God.
Waiting for my daughter, waiting for
God.
us. And we just went, holy crap. And they were all big and burly and leather and like scary and tattoos and like, but they were like surrounding her,
Oh
giving
my
her
God.
knuckle bumps, telling her she could do this, how brave she was. And it was just like this, they even gave her own road name, which was Nugget. So my little Nugget.
Aw.
It was amazing. And so we all went in there, and it was talk about, these God moments. I'm telling you, it's like, what, how, and the like, so, but we got into the courthouse, and then there was all this commotion. I didn't know what was going on. And all of the bikers just stood up and did this semicircle around my daughter, like a wall of protection. And I looked around, and then all of a sudden, here he comes on a gurney. So he was in the hospital, still sick of diabetes, I guess, coming through the hall, but he was so high that my daughter and him locked eyes.
Oh.
And she just fell to the ground in a pile of tears. I can't do this. I can't do this. She was inconsolable. We couldn't. I'm like, oh my God, how is she going to testify? Look at her, like she's got to testify.
Yeah.
So another God moment happened, and the district attorney came over and said, you know what? We only have an hour. So the other little girl is going to tell her story.
Oh, wow.
And you can come back on Wednesday. So we had 2 days to buff her up, empower her, support her, take her to the beach, take her to Disneyland. We just did everything we could to boost her up, and we came back on Wednesday, and there were 30 bikers waiting for us.
Holy crap.
Like the story of Nugget had spread.
Wow.
And everyone from LA County to Riverside County to Orange County, like all the bikers came. These are people who had to take days off of work to be there last minute. And she got up there and she did it, but it was at first like she was very mousy, a little quiet, but she was doing it. She got to have somebody sit behind her as like a support person. So she had her sister sit behind her. Couldn't touch her, couldn't talk to her, but at least she was there. Right. And of course, my oldest said she was staring daggers at the guy because he's right there. And God, and then the prosecutor, the defense attorney, started telling her like, so who here told you to tell this story? Like, like she was lying.
Right.
And she just got mad, and like, her back, you could tell she stood up straighter, got louder, and she pointed at him and she said, that man made me go to the hospital 3 times. Like, I'm telling the truth. And she just, we just like held on to each other, and then of course the strength it took for us to not jump over the rail. I killed this guy who was 20 feet from us.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was like the talk about strength. It was like,
what a brave little girl then to like you said, kind of pop up and be like, no, this is the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. This was just pure like, courage, and she just became this different person and just was so full of strength and confidence, and it was amazing. And she went out and they took this awesome picture of all the bikers surrounding her, and she was kind of like this, like, yeah, that I did. So she had this like look of utter confidence. Like it was so awesome. So we later that night, she actually said, Mama, I don't want to be at that home anymore. I'm ready to come home. I want to do life. I want to do school. And she did. She came home. She got inducted into the Baca family. like
Yeah.
for, because they said that you kind of do it, this is all backwards. Like, they first get the case and they get to know her and introduce the child to Baca, and then, court comes later. They did it all backwards,
Wow.
and they came to our house on a Sunday, and like, I don't know, it must have been like 40 bikers all on their Harleys came and roared through our cul-de-sac, and they just surrounded her, gave her her own little jacket. They called it a cut, and, their motto.
Yeah, a total warrior, a total badass. I could just imagine just beaming like a celebrity, like, like
a little rock star. I mean, it was during the court day, I think it was on Wednesday, when they were flanking her wherever she went. And like two-body, always beside her, they never took her, out of their sight. And my sister was there, and she said, "Hey, go to the bathroom. See, these guys will like follow you." And she's like, "No, they won't." I'm like, "Yeah, they will. Just try it." So she went up, and then two got up and were next to her, walked her all the way in, and then stood on either side of the door like she was a movie star.
Oh my God.
To make sure nobody else. And then as soon as she walked out, they flanked her, and like she went back to her seat, and she was like, "Oh," she like looked up at them like, "Wow." And she was it was so cool to see, that kind of
a moment of safety for her, something that she probably hadn't felt in how long?
I know. It was crazy. And, when we were at that ceremony, when they entered, when they came to our house, they presented her with a backpack that had a blanket in it. And they took this blanket out and they put it on their chest, and they circled her, and they hugged each other. Like put the blanket in between, and they hugged each other, and then they took the blanket and then went to the next person, and then they hugged each other, and they went all the way around this circle. And then they presented it to her, and they said, "This is full of Baca hugs.
Oh my God.
This will protect you. This is what you could wear, at night, it'll protect you from nightmares." And she was just, she was plagued with nightmares. So,
oh my God.
These things are like unreal. Like, they're like, "Who are you? Like, who does this?" And I was just, it was crazy. And one of the things that happened after that, which was something again that just blew my mind, was she was in voice lessons, and she was going to do. They were telling her, you should do the high school talent show. You should audition, and it was kind of like the high school had a lot of talented kids, so they said you should really do it. And then her voice teacher, who did not know her story at the time, said, that's a song that would be really good for your voice is called Warrior by Demi Lovato.
Awesome.
And you should sing this song. And so she started learning it and singing it and stuff like that, and getting ready for the talent show. Was in March, and it was like, January or whatever. And it didn't even hit me what the words were until probably like the second or third lesson, because I would always go. And then I realized, holy crap, this is her story. Yeah. This is her actual story. And I was just, I had to like leave the room. I was like getting all teared up. And then I had asked her later, and I said, "Did you realize, did you understand what the words are? I mean, do you know what you're singing?" And she said, "Yeah, like that was not a big deal." I was like, "Oh my God."
Oh my God.
And so then I'm thinking, oh God, what happened to Demi Lovato? Something must have happened with her. Yeah. So it was exactly her story. So a lot of people, after they had heard her sing this, asked me if she wrote it.
Really?
Wrote it. And I'm like, no, that's not.
She could have.
It was just, she could have, exactly. Yeah. And so it was crazy because she got bronchitis like that week that she was supposed to sing at the talent show.
Oh boy.
And so she was not talking. And so she ended up doing it and got through it. It wasn't, she still did it, and no one really noticed that she had bronchitis. Wow. But we had some friends of hers come to the show that were in the Sungate Kids program, where that program was, kids 14, 15 years old.
Okay.
And the parents, so the kids would go into one room with a therapist, and the parents would go into another room with a therapist, their therapist. So the parents got to be together and the kids got to be together. Well, there was one kid that they kept, in touch, and we invited her to the talent show and to surprise Courtney. And she didn't know that they were going to be there. And so I'm sitting there, how many times I've heard her sing the song. So I wasn't going to cry or anything. I'm in the audience. I'm with this other mom. She's never heard the song before either. But by the time she got to the first chorus, the mom grabbed my hand and squeezed it, and I lost it.
Yeah.
So we were just both just crying and everything. And so that was such a great moment. Of course, she screamed when she saw her friend afterwards in the audience, and they all hugged. And so that was so fun. And, this whole journey that we went through inspired me to do something. I don't know what, it obviously inspired me to write the story.
Right.
And I wrote the story. It was the story itself, to write it. It was so hard. Like, I can say it, but to put it on paper and read it, that was like a whole nother thing.
Relived every single moment, every single word you had to relive again. That's almost traumatizing and almost like PTSD going back through it all.
Yeah, exactly. So that was something it was really tough. I think I got to page 4 and I couldn't write anymore. And it was like right at a place where I knew what was coming next, and I had this block.
Yeah.
And it turned out where we were supposed to go on a writer's retreat with a bunch of the other authors. And one by one, they kept saying they couldn't do it. Well, the main author, Crystal, the one who put the book together, she was like, "Do you still want to go?" And I go, "Yeah, I need help." So we ended up going, just the two of us, to a condo in Keystone for the weekend. And we pushed through it, and I ended up writing it and finishing it, through tears and through like angst. And we did a lot of walking, and we came back to it and then stopped and then came back to it, reread it. And so by the time it was done, it was like 10,000 words, and apparently I can only do 7,000.
Oh no!
So we had an editor, and the editor read it. She's like, "Oh my God, I've read it twice, and I've cried both times." And
Right?
It's such a good story. She's like, "But we can't, keep it the way it is." And so how the heck am I going to take this stuff out? So we worked through it, and we got down to like 7,800, and we had to get pre-approval for the 7,800, and we did. So my chapter ended up being the longest in the book. It was like 20 pages long. And it's at the end of the book, where she had told me that the lighter ones start out, and then the heavier, intense ones at the end. And of course, mine was at the end. Yeah. And so when it came out, it was great. I saw that mortgage broker again a couple months after the book came out. It was, we were at Corner Bakery Yard. She walked by or something. And we said, "Oh my gosh," and she came over, and she's like, she knew that the book was out, and she literally said, "Now, what was that group I told you about?" Like, she didn't remember. Oh, and I was like, looked at her like she's grown 3 heads. I'm like, how? That was like the altering, life-changing moment of my entire life.
Oh my gosh.
And then when I reminded her, she goes, "Oh yeah, I just saw the video on Facebook that morning."
Oh my gosh.
I was like, okay, so if that's not like divine intervention,
right?
Like, seriously.
Yeah. For her to bring it up and then so nonchalant and then kind of forget about it. And it's like this huge, like you said, it's another God moment,
Exactly. So, after the story was written, I got an idea to become a speaker. Like, I was at one of these polka dot events.
Yeah.
And we were going around the room introducing ourselves, and it was polka dot, and they said, you had to stand up and say, why you became a dot, how long you've been a dot, what you love about it, and what you're working on. And at the time, I had just found out that I had got a diagnosis of diabetes a couple of months ago. So I was working on my health. I was working on losing weight. And so that's what I was going to say. But as the women started talking, they kept talking about how uncomfortable they were with public speaking, or, just sharing their story or sharing anything. And I kept thinking of this workshop I took in California called How to Become Comfortable with the Uncomfortable. And I thought, wow, these women need that workshop. We should have, like, and then I thought, wow, what if I could do that? Like, what if I could talk about that?
Yes.
And then I started envisioning myself on stage with polka dot pajamas on, like a onesie polka dot pajamas, like talking about being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. So I was so excited. I stood up and said, I'm going to be a speaker at the next convention. I like told everybody in the room, which was like 50 something people. So, and the founder of the group was like, okay, well, I'm going to send you a picture of what it looks like to stand in front of hundreds of women, and see if you still want to do it. And I'm like, okay. So after that meeting, I kind of went up to her and I was so excited. I go, do you want to hear my idea? Do you want to hear my idea? And she's like, oh, maybe. I'm not sure. You're kind of crazy. But so it's just, yeah. And I just kind of like, how to become comfortable with the uncomfortable. And she just looked at me and kind of nodded her head. She's like, okay, well, that was done 2 years ago.
Oh.
And I was like, oh. I just like the balloon just went out of my, like, oh my God. So she's like, wait a minute. It's important though. We need to be reminded of this. So just change the name.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay. So I went home, started thinking about what was comfortable. Well, pajamas are comfortable. I started thinking about, me in pajamas. Right. And then, well, what's uncomfortable? Well, fear is uncomfortable. So I am fearless, but only in my pajamas.
Oh, I love it.
So as women, when we're home and we're visualizing and we're like feeling brave and feeling great, and then we take our pajamas off and go outside, like all the fear comes back.
Right.
So
I love that. Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh my gosh, that's great. So I messaged the founder, and she came back and she said, oh my God, I love it. Fearless pajamas, get me some.
Yes.
And I thought, oh, it's Fearless Pajamas. That's all I have to say. So I created this company. I created the logo and the colors, and I started speaking, forever who would hear me. So, and then I created a product, that was totally about the blanket and Courtney, called the Warrior Blanket.
Aww.
And it's this little 4x4. With an affirmation on it that says, this is my warrior blanket. It brings me comfort and courage to overcome any obstacle. I am fierce. I even put a Bible verse on there because I wanted to have that represented. Yep. And the other side was really fuzzy, like a blanket. So it's this little squishy, like an anxiety tool. And I created this, never thinking I was creative at all. And then I came up with this product. I came up with this company. And, ever since then, every time I speak, I talk about the blanket. I talk about Courtney's story. I talked about how, we can become, fearless without these pajamas, because this pajamas is like a protection layer. So I have 3 tools. So I created this presentation. It's been really crazy last couple of years that I've done this, and I'm still a full-time insurance agent. That's what I do.
Right.
But this is, something that's my passion, and all of my proceeds go to Baca. So anytime I sell a book, anytime I sell a warrior blanket, I send it off to them, because I will be forever grateful for what they've done for me and my family.
That is absolutely amazing.
Can you think about it though? It's like, I literally say in my presentation, because most of my audience is this polka dot powerhouse, because they have chapters all over the country, and I tell them, polka dot powerhouse saved my daughter's life. Like, if I didn't go to that meeting and didn't meet with this lady and found out about Baca, I honestly can tell you that I don't know if she could have done it. I don't know if Nugget could have braved that stage, that trial.
That was life-changing.
So, and in turn saved my life, because if I would have lost my daughter, I don't know if I would be here either.
Right. Right.
And
it's like you said, there's a lot of God moments that played into this whole thing. I mean, it's just incredible when you look back and say, I see it there, I see it here. Here's another instance where God showed up and put who I needed in my life. It's just amazing to me.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, it's really hard to fathom sometimes when I think back, you know, on how this whole journey started and what I've gone through. And it's not over, you know,
Right.
yet. And Courtney's doing great.
Right.
She did go to college for a little while, came back. She wanted to be a music therapist, you know, because
Awesome.
music is such a big deal. So she's using that. She's like taking these Broadway classes online right now. She'll probably go back to like a community college, you know, just to kind of get going. But, you know, she goes to therapy every other week and that's it.
Right.
She's off all medication. She was on 5 at one point when she got out of
Yeah,
the hospital.
I imagine.
You know, so she is the epitome of someone who had a tragedy in her life and me and turned it around and, you know, is thriving, not just surviving.
Right. And she made
And,
it
you
through
know,
it.
right. And she, you know, she's not ready to be in front of audiences to talk
Right.
about her story, but I think someday she will because it is powerful. Coming from
Yes.
me, it's the mom's perspective,
Right. But hers will
you
be a
know.
different, you know,
Oh yeah. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
first person type of situation.
And when she's ready, she'll see the impact she'll have on other, especially young girls who haven't maybe found the voice to speak up and even say the words and get to that point, because many don't ever talk about it. I actually know more women in my life who have gone through sexual assault than women who haven't. That's a scary
Oh my
thought.
God. It is, you know, and every
Yeah.
time I speak, I don't know how many times people have, you know, spoken out and said, you know, that happened to me or that happened to my daughter, or that either they
Yeah.
know somebody. It's just so prevalent. And then, you know, the statistics are just what people share. You don't
Yeah.
know how many people are holding on to these secrets, you know, because
Oh,
it's just
yeah.
too hard.
Yeah. I mean, I was fortunate. My daughter, she was able to come home the morning after it happened and tell me, you know, what had happened to her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I also have a sister-in-law who was molested from the time she was 11 to 15, and she didn't come out and even talk to me until she was 22 years old, and nobody knew. So at that
Wow.
point, you know, we did, you know, seek to, you know, have him arrested and all that, and he barely got a slap on the hands. And so part of it for me, when I hear stories like yours, I think we need some reform as far as the judicial system, as far as holding these people accountable for the trauma they inflict on, you know, boys and girls who now have to live with this.
Yeah.
I mean, look what your daughter went through. He basically stole her childhood, and she has memories now of having to go through that. And, you know, so I really
Yeah.
hope justice was served with him.
You know what's interesting, and which reminds me, I still need to email the district attorney because they've switched. He is still in the system because and has not been technically convicted because they keep having delays in court. So, like, you know, they go, you know, do a delay. They're
Mhm.
also claiming doubt, meaning he's not mentally capable to stand trial.
Oh, for heaven's
Now
sakes.
he's lost another leg.
Okay.
So so diabetes is eating him away, like
Yeah.
literally. I have found out too that all of his family disowned him. No one calls him, no one visits, no one
Okay.
writes,
Well, you know,
you know.
he's being
Like,
punished.
so maybe, you know, yeah, it's like, you know, it's not,
Mhm.
death isn't quick enough, you know,
Right.
but I do know, I feel that he will die in this prison system.
Yeah.
And I think once he does, it'll be even a bigger closure for my
Yeah.
daughter because he's still out
Yeah.
there technically, but locked up, you know.
Right. Right. But still, that's even more painful having it being drug out. You know, that's awful that you guys have to go through that still.
Yeah.
And the
So
way,
I do need
yeah.
to email the district attorney just to see where we're at. Like, okay, like I think the last court date was sometime in June is
Right.
when last thing I heard, but you know, it'll be interesting to see what even is happening at this
Right.
time. The district attorney literally calls him Gollum because he looks like Gollum from Lord of the Rings with
Oh my
like
gosh.
just wispy like hair and just skinny and
Oh.
gaunt and, you know,
Mm-hmm. Wow.
yeah.
Well, in my daughter's case, in a way we lucked out because he confessed everything, because she was unconscious when he did what he did to her. And so she found out the next day by messaging him, like, you know, what happened. She knew something happened, but she, you know, and so he confessed some of it to her in a Facebook message. And then when the police arrested him, he gave them more details. So having to read that, in his own words what he did to her, and he did it twice. It's
Whew.
unthinkable. And yeah, but the problem was
So did he? Okay, go ahead.
he
I was
barely
like gonna ask you
got a
something.
slap on the wrist. He
Oh no.
he was on probation for a year, and they got it expunged from his record because he said he was sorry. Yeah. So you can imagine, I mean, the trauma, like obviously my daughter went through as well. She did her therapy and all that too. It took a while before she'd go to therapy because she had to go through that almost like a rebelling, like, I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim. And she tells the story herself, and she's going to also start speaking. She's supposed to speak at I actually
Oh.
I have an event called Warrior Unchained. So I love that your story includes Warrior. So,
Oh my gosh.
I have me wear my Warrior shirt today too. But
Oh wow.
so Jennifer, my daughter, is going to talk about her story and she uses art. She's an artist. So I really think there's a part of the brain with music and art that really seems to help people heal. There's a process she went through with her art where she could, it's kind of like what your daughter with the song, Warrior, it's a healing. So it's just amazing to see the stories. And now that your daughter is going to be paying it forward to be that music therapist, I just think it's the good that comes out of such evil. It always amazes me.
Right. Yeah. Like if we had the power, we would take it back in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But the fact that we can't change the past, we could only, work with what we have and work, go forward. So this is pretty awesome though. That's an option,
Sometimes we never know how God works the way he works, but she's going to be somebody else's savior with their story, with what she's doing. I feel like she's going to be put in someone else's life the way Baca was for you guys. You know how that plan played out. She's going to be that person for somebody else. It'll come full circle. I have no doubt.
Yeah. That's exciting, actually.
Yeah, she'll be someone's blessing. Absolutely. But oh wow. Well, your story is just so incredible. I'm so thankful that you applied and that you were willing to come on and speak. And I'm just, it's almost overwhelming to think about all the emotions and that you guys have gone through. You talk about it for 45 minutes, but this was a huge chunk of your life, right?
Oh yeah. Years.
Yeah,
exactly.
And like you said, try to narrow it down to 7,000 words of this experience, this traumatic experience your family went through. Yeah.
I know. And people are trying to tell me, that the editor is like, you got to promise me you're going to write your own book because I have to there was a couple of sections that we had to take out. And she's like, this is so important, but we can't, I think the flow. So, I think someday I will.
Especially
write a Fearless Pajamas book or something.
Yeah. And especially if you're speaking on it, I mean, people love the book. That's an amazing thing to tie, because then you can talk more on stage. You're there for like an hour or however long your presentation is. Then they get the book and they can get more of the story and share it and buy it as a gift and stuff too. So I always think books are a great thing when you're speaking. People can get to know you even more. Right. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Awesome. So thank you again for coming on. I'm stoked to share your story. This will be uploaded to YouTube and then also on the podcast. And I don't edit. So exactly how the show is today is how people will hear it.
The dog's barking and everything.
Everything. Yeah. We just let her go. I'm not about perfection. I'm about just telling the story and letting it be real and raw. So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, your daughter is one brave girl. I feel blessed to hear her story and how, the courage she's had. What an amazing daughter. And you're just to advocate for your daughter too. I mean, know that out of a mother's worst nightmare of what could happen, for how much you advocated for her, it's just, you're a fantastic, amazing mom.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So thank you again. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up, and we'll be here next Monday. If you want to connect with Stacie, especially if you know where she could speak, if you have a podcast or another polka dot chapter, I'm also a polka dot. So if there's a chapter out there, please reach out to Stacie at fearlesspajamas.com. I think she'll be an amazing addition if you want to see her story. So
thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. We'll see you back here next Monday, same time. Bye.
Bye.